Hey guys, this is Zlewikk and welcome back to our series of videos about Tinto Talks, so EU5 Dev Diaries. After last week's interesting dev diary about diplomacy, I recommend checking it. Today we're gonna talk about a feature that technically was in EU4 but really wasn't, and something that had a big importance of history of a lot of regions of the world, so slaves trade, and slavery in general. First of all, slaves will be both a trade good, however you call it, and also one of the 6 types of pops. In general, they will have no rights in your country, you'll be only exploited. They're not allowed to move around on their own, only they can be moved by trades or wars, etc. And their population in general by default will not be increasing. At best, it will be staying at the same time or decreasing because of the different impacts. They also have no income and no political power in your country. But beware, if they get literacy, you might have problems with their upset and they might rebel. By the start of the game, most of the countries in Europe are already not using it, but there are a lot of parts of the world where they will be present at the start of the game. And I saw already a comment from Johan that you cannot go back and start using it again when your country is already not using it. So no slave trade in Poland in 1337. And see, there will be very direct pop types, like for example Circassian Orthodox slaves in Cairo, so to specify by culture and religion of this slave group. How slaves can be used, what they can be used for? Well, mainly, just like in history, they can be used for resource gathering, or can be used for various buildings, but also some specific countries will be having features about converting these slaves into soldiers, like for example Mamluk units or Janissaries. Talking about specific content, because there's already a lot of flavor it seems in game. For example, Genoa will be having a unique building called Galley Barracks, which will be converting slaves and iron into sailors. But how the hell can you get slaves in EU5? Well, the most common way and historical one is just going on a war with a country, and when you're sacking a city, you'll be able to enslave part of this population. Some of the nations will be having a specific casus belli that is gonna be enslavement of people of the other nation, like for example they mention here Aztecs and Khanet Empire in Africa. Then we've got Berbers, so Berber states that will be able to raid. In EU4 is a simple button to just go and take money and sailors. In EU5, it will be more like raiding for slaves, when you're raiding specific random ports from a specific area to enslave people from there. They already mentioned it can be stopped with a truce, just like in EU4, a high opinion above 100, or that's actually pretty nice, coastal fortress. So the coastal buildings will be actually of use, not like in EU4. Then we've got a building called Slave Market, which, as they're saying, it acts as a hub for slave trade, and we also try to enslave pops of non-accepted cultures and different religious groups. This is to simulate how the Delhi Sultanate and others enslave people in their conquer lands over time. So you see, we are converting all of these goods, including a bit of slaves, into more slaves in the slave market. And something, you know, historically, very often, especially in the triangle trade, you're getting goods from, let's say, England. You sell these goods to, let's say, Khanet Empire to get slaves in the exchange, and in America you exchange these slaves for the New World goods. Besides just buying slaves from Africa, just like they mentioned to be possible, the alternative will be to build a building that is called slave centers. That will allow you to catch slaves in a country where you build that building in a port, if that country is a lower rank than you. So that is also some historical stuff where colonizers were catching actual people on the coast around their camps and enslaving them and sending them to the New World. Not as many people as being bought from the local kings and princes, but this was also happening there, so they're trying to show that in game as well. And yeah, finally you can trade for slaves. There'll be of course also a demand on supply of slaves, so the whole trade system will be also happening around this. So that's much deeper, as you see, than in EU4 wasn't any trade of slaves, but there was a trade good and that's it. In here they also mention that early on the slave trade will be mostly trans-Saharan, so like exchange between Canaan Empire and West Africa and Northern Africa, like Mamluks, Morocco, etc. But then over the time there will be more and more triangle trades that I just explained to you. But also they mention that very common will be the Mongol states, slave system where they will be enslaving one religion, let's say Christians, and selling them to the Muslims, and enslaving Muslims and selling them to Christians for their conquests. That's really cool, and this is one of a few, because mostly week to week we are talking about maybe new features, but it's the same feature but just reworked to work differently, like diplomacy. There were a few new features in EU5 that we had, like international organizations. Here's a new one. This is a completely new feature, and I don't know about you guys, but I like it. Let's see how people are liking it in the comments. But first, next week we'll talk about great powers and hegemonies. Johan is saying you cannot enslave the same culture, pops. Somebody's asking if there will be a peace treaty to return slaves to your country. Because right, when I conquer Christian Poles, there will be Christian Poles as slaves of the Mongol Empire. So actually Johan is saying that there's no such a peace treaty to return slaves, but they're gonna add it because it's great feedback. Leave your feedback, guys, in the comment section. Yeah, the 10 countries from Europe reintroduce slavery. No. Again, confirmation that slaves will not grow by their own. They will maintain their levels at best, and people don't like that feedback. Sealand is asking if there will be possibility to have a nation that is only slaves. There's no such thing right now. All that's out of questions. Will indentured peasants be also represented as slaves? No. Most European countries didn't officially allow for slavery before the discovery of America. Will this be represented? Yes. Is allowed children of slaves become free in the game? It operates like this in some places. No. Can an attempt at abolition trigger a civil war like in the US? It's out of the time frame. Will abolition be instantaneous? Yes. If you don't practice slavery, will you free all the slaves upon getting some in your lands? Yes. Can slaves start a slave revolt? If yes, what will happen if they win? Yes, no more slavery. Johan is saying that there are a few laws that will limit slavery, so will not be building slave markets everywhere. I hope slave raids and capturing slaves from sacked cities will be near ubiquitous in sub-Saharan Africa, and Johan is saying yes, it's very common there. Someone is saying courts should definitely have some sort of non-war rate mechanic for acquiring slaves like the Berbers, not just limited to sieges. And Johan is saying we had a mechanic similar to it, but it was not good and very micromanagement. Oh yeah, I did not read, but there will be human sacrifices from slaves as well, like in the Aztecs. I am surprised you decided to tackle this issue. I thought it was a no-no. And Johan is saying we're making a game simulation history, and it's a part of it, whether we like it or not. Okay guys, I think that's it for today. Let me know how you enjoyed this dev diary and what you think about this, I would say, completely new mechanic. And of course subscribe to the channel to get notified about the next Tinto talks. Again, great powers and hegemonies. Both of these two things weren't a feature in EU4 release. See you there.